You have been systematically lied to about the left-right political spectrum. Hello everybody, my name is Manuel at Kingsguard Media, and here we do socio-political discussion from a Christian point of view. Christian Foundationalism is the concept that Christianity and biblical values and principles should be the cornerstone of any political society, and that they should be the ones influencing our policies and our legislation. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the left-right political divide that has garnered so much attention due to the recent elections in the US and also the recent elections here in the UK, with Labour taking power here, the Republicans taking power there, the rise of what is known as the far right all across Europe, and the direction that we are heading in the Western world when it comes to our political spheres. The typical left-right divide actually finds its roots in the French Revolution, where one side of parliament would sit on one side and the other on the other side. You had the pro-monarchists on one side and the anti-monarchists on the other side. But in today's day and age, we use it to differentiate between liberals and conservatives, or at least that's how the general public perceives this split. The layman might think that on the far left of the political spectrum you have communism, whereas on the far right of the political spectrum you have fascism. The most notable examples of each would be Stalinist Russia and Nazi Germany. However, others might describe the left-right spectrum to be more based on an economic set of values, socialism on the far left and privatization on the far right. And even if you look at just these two examples of what is commonly, for the average person, the left-right spectrum, you already start to see some problems with it arriving. For example, though they were seen as a far-right ideology in today's standards, the Nazis were actually socialists, hence the term National Socialist, where we get the term Nazi from, which means that they were pro-state control of the means of production, which is why Hitler and his Nazis did actually nationalize a whole host of industry all across the country. The difference between them and communists, as Hitler himself said, was that the foundation of their belief system was that it was a national and racial socialism, so a Germany first socialism, so to speak, whereas communism, in its traditional sense, is an international movement that has no focus on race, but is entirely based on class equality. However, both systems advocate for state control of the means of production. They call this public control of the means of production, but really it's state control, because the state is the one in charge of these industries once they take power, and not the individual people. So going by that definition, both communism and fascism should be on the left-hand side of the spectrum. And this is my main point when it comes to the deception that has been brought about by viewing everything through politics on this left-right divide. You hear it all the time, people saying the woke left, the fascist right, and people throwing out these buzz terms because they have no other way to label their political opposition. And also there's a lot of people who would actually agree with the economic, if we're looking at the traditional way of how people might describe the left-right, they might have some values, some economic values that favor what is classically known as the right-hand side, such as a free market and individual businesses, but socially they would be for, let's say, LGBT rights or abortion access, which is typically known as left-wing social ideology. My point with this video is to try and get you to break out of the mindset of the right and left wing divide, and instead look at the individual issues from their fundamental perspective. You want to see two things: do they work and are they morally just? And the reason why I hold this position is because I believe in Christian foundationalism when it comes to politics, which means that the Bible is the one that influences every single policy and legislation that we should have in a country. Therefore, the morality of any given legislation is just as important as its functionality. As an example, I myself hold to right-wing concepts such as the free market. When it comes to economic policies, I believe people should be encouraged to start businesses. I think that taxation for lower workers should be quite low. I believe that taxation in general should only be for the minimalist function of the state. However, unlike an anarcho-capitalist, I do believe we need a state. I do believe the state has functions. I do also believe in social welfare nets. On the other side, if we're looking at the social elements of the left-wing divide, I would find myself often on what you might classically label as the right side as well. Because I'm not pro-LGBTQ being shoved into every single area of public life. I am anti-abortion, I'm pro-life. I have a Christian outlook when it comes to economics, and I have a Christian outlook when it comes to social issues. However, as you might have just seen a second ago, me being pro-social welfare is something, and even pro potentially free socialized healthcare, as we have here in the UK, having the NHS, which is a service I often use and I'm very thankful for. So I have beliefs across the spectrum. A social belief that some might place on the left-hand side of the traditional spectrum is the support for homeless people and the nationalized support for homeless people, such as outreach programs, such as temporary accommodation and housing and welfare programs, and all these things that would be usually classed as a left-hand side belief. And the reason I have this big cluster of belief systems is because I believe that the Bible and Jesus teaches a variety of different ways to live life the proper way. I believe we should look out for the least of us and support them as a society, and even as a government body. You should support the least of us in that way. However, I do not believe in promoting immorality, such as normalizing homosexual marriage and other acts such as this. I believe these acts to be sinful and that it should have never been legislated to be legal. And as an example, on the right-hand side, I believe in the free market and that people should be allowed to build businesses and be free to build businesses, and that there should be low taxation on those businesses so they can live a full, happy life and to look after their family members. However, I also believe there needs to be a strong state that regulates that market and ensures that people fulfill their contractual obligations. And so the main point I want to get away with this video is that try to get away from the idea of being in the left camp or the right camp, calling everyone with certain belief systems left and everyone with certain belief systems right, because the truth is a lot of us will actually hold cross-sectional belief systems, and even the spectrum itself can often change based on individual interpretation. And so your main takeaway should be, is the thing that I believe to be true actually morally just? Or do I just feel like it is morally just? Because there's a difference between the two. You need to have some sort of objective standard by which you measure whether the thing you want to do is right or wrong. Is it morally right for the state to provide temporary accommodation to homeless people who might have drug addictions? Is it right to take away a small business owner's profits in order to fund social justice ad campaigns? What is morally just? And this is exactly why I believe in Christian Foundationalism, which teaches that the Bible and the teachings of Jesus are the foundation of proper legislative interpretation.